During October of this year, the second remake of Dune, the second movie version of Dune, will be released in theaters and on HBO Max. I saw the trailer and I thought it looked really awesome. I had heard of Dune before many times. I didn't really know much about it though, but after I saw the trailer, I knew I had to watch the movie. And I have a strict rule that if I'm ever going to watch a movie that's based on a book and I might want to read that book, I won't watch the movie until I read that book. Mostly because of Lord of the Rings. I saw the movies much before read the books and made the books a lot harder to read. So for that reason, I picked up Dune because I knew I'd want to see the movie, and I also was very interested in the book, and I read it. It took me about 2 weeks to read. I read it very fast because I wanted to read it before the movie came out. And I have a lot to say about this book. A lot of people say that this book was a huge inspiration for Star Wars, and while it was definitely the biggest sci-fi novel of the time and is still one of the biggest sci-fi novels currently, I don't think it's very similar to Star Wars, and that isn't really going to be the topic of this video. The topic is what you should know about it before you read it. It's basically just a book review, right? So this book is about the son of a duke named Paul Atreides, and him and his family are requested to rule over this planet called Arrakis. And on Arrakis, it is the most valuable resource in the universe. It's this spice, right? Sometimes it's called cinnamon. There's several names for it, but it's a spice that gives people these strange abilities, and it's the most valuable resource. So this planet is very valuable, although it's a very harsh planet to live in. And basically there's like this conspiracy to put the Atreides family there and rule over it, all this stuff. And there's a lot of people who want control of the planet for various reasons. So the story follows Paul, who takes control, or who his family rules over the planet, and then eventually he has to learn the ways of the Fremen, who are basically the natives of the planet. It's a very interesting storyline with lots of different themes, and a lot of people love this book, hate it, or kind of in between on it. But I like this book for different reasons than most people, I think, and dislike it for different reasons, at least from what I've heard. First, I want to start off with the writing was fine. I feel like a lot of people from reviews that I've read have a lot to say about his writing. They say his writing sounds like a newspaper. Like, it sounds like he's a newspaper writer trying to write a sci-fi fantasy book. And I disagree. I think he knew what he was doing in terms of his voice and in terms of the style. The style is very consistent, and it makes sense. And also, it's I can handle it. Like, it's not annoying necessarily. It's just very different. In the book, you can see the different perspectives of several different characters. Basically, in a scene, you can see or read the thoughts of every character in that scene, right? So it's a omniscient point of view, essentially. You don't really read that a lot anymore because it lacks suspense. But the thing, Herbert wasn't trying to build suspense in this book. That wasn't the point. And honestly, I still think the suspense was there. There's a betrayal in the book, and this is something that I've heard other people talk about, and that's their big issue with this writing style, is that this betrayal, the character constantly says, I'm going to betray them, I'm going to betray them. The other characters know someone's going to betray them, but they don't know who. And people say it's obvious, and I don't think it is. I don't think it is obvious that he's going to betray them, the family, right? And this isn't a spoiler. It's not a spoiler. But I think there still was suspense, because how was it going to happen? Was he going to succeed? Was he going to fail? There's still suspense to that, and the point is that it's hard to do the things Herbert was trying to do with just one perspective, or just two perspectives. So I don't really have any problems with the writing, although I completely understand if you dislike the writing. That's the one thing I'll say. It's not like anyone can read this book, right? It's like you have to be in the right mindset to read it, and you have to understand kind of some things going in. But if you're ready for that, I think the writing's really good, honestly. It's very different, like I said, and sometimes it's difficult to read, but it's kind of feels like difficult in the sense that Lord of the Rings is difficult sometimes, although it's not that difficult. Just to say, I didn't have a hard time understanding like the plot and the action in this book. It wasn't like confusing in that sense, but I'll get more into that later. So now let's talk about the major problems I have with this book, and I'll talk about some more good stuff, and we'll see how this style of video goes. But my biggest problem with this book is the villain. I won't give away too much details, but I think it's good to know these things before you read it so you don't have unrealistic expectations. Because if you are interested in reading this book, I definitely think you should read it, no matter what other people say, because the opinions on this book are very subjective. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it, like I said. So I think you should read it and make your own opinions on it because they vary. But again, I think it's good to know these things. So the villain, right? He wants control over Arrakis. His name is Baron Vladimir, I believe. I might have been spelt differently, but Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. My problem is he just wants power. He's that kind of villain. He's evil just to be evil. He does these terrible things, and it's just like, okay, like, yeah, those things are terrible, but whatever. He's a bad guy, you know? He doesn't have a deeper meaning to him. Doesn't seem like he cares about anybody. Doesn't seem like he has a purpose, like he's trying to get revenge or anything. He just wants power, which is kind of a boring thing to read, and I was hoping by the end there would have been some deeper meaning, but there wasn't. My second problem is kind of with the main character, Paul, and it's more just like confusing because and a lot of the characters are like this almost, is some of them, they just don't feel like real people. They feel half written almost. Like, yeah, they have this great mission and these great things they want to do, but they don't really have a personality, if you know what I mean. The only character that the characters that actually felt like they have a personality is the Duke, Leto, I think is how you say his name, which is Paul's father. Gurney, I think he has a good personality, and the Mentat guy, Thufir or something like that. I think they all have some personality to them, but Paul doesn't. He's just like the normal character, if you know what I mean. He doesn't have things he likes. It's just kind of boring. That's all I mean. I wish there was more to his character. But again, brings me back to the point. Herbert wasn't trying to do that. I think he was very capable. He could have made a good character, interesting character that felt like a real person, but that wasn't the point. And also, this is a 6-book series, and a lot of people only read the first book. I might only read the first book. I don't know if I'm going to read the other books. But I think Paul's character might deepen later on. I don't know. But I'm just reviewing this book, right? So, like I was saying, Herbert's goal was more the themes and the politics of it, which I'm going to get into next. The focal point of this book is the religious aspects of it, which at the time was rare for sci-fi. You know, it was more focused on like being smart and science. Because it's science fiction. But this book was very heavily built upon religion as its main theme. That one religion can manipulate another to get what it wants, essentially. And how one can get caught up in a religion and stuff. It was very... I don't even know if it was skeptical or criticizing religion. It just talked about religion a lot. And then the same thing goes with like the ecological stuff, where they want to change the planet or maybe they don't. Is it good? Is it bad? He doesn't really say firmly, and that's my other problem with it, although whatever, right? It's kind of up for interpretation. He doesn't ever clearly take a stand against anything. It's kind of just, let's talk about it, and that's it. But maybe he does in future books. I don't know. Secondly, I want to talk about like the sci-fi aspects of it, because that's something that I really liked about this book. I loved the planets, or the planet, I guess. There's only a few that you actually visit. The planet, I love the ships. I love the sandworms. I love the different kind of technology. It doesn't feel corny at all, which sometimes sci-fi feels corny to me, which isn't a bad thing, but it's just kind of refreshing, even though this is a old book, right? It's not a new sci-fi book. There's so much stuff that has come out after this. So I just like it. It didn't feel over the top sci-fi. It was just, that was the context of where this story was taking place, if that makes sense. For the most part, I did enjoy this book. It's very weird. It's definitely very weird. There's some weird stuff going on in this book. Remember, it's centers around this spice drug. It's essentially a drug. I should have mentioned that. It's basically a drug. It's not like for cooking. It's a drug. It's kind of weird. It's very interesting. It's very dark, right? Let's get into like comparing this to Star Wars. Star Wars is very, very different from this. Star Wars is fun, and it's also takes more of a stance on the individual rather than like society, which is what most stories do, right? They talk about the individual rather than everything as a whole. This book talks about religion and ecological stuff, like that would relate to the climate stuff that's going on right now, right? Even though this book was written a long time ago, this book is very dark, right? There's some dark stuff in this book that's just not in Star Wars. Star Wars was made for kids essentially, and I love Star Wars. It's amazing. Part of me almost thought that maybe I might enjoy this more than Star Wars because of how deep it was told to be, but I can't relate to the characters. The themes don't take a stance. That's a problem, right? If you're gonna have these deep themes, take a stance on it. Don't just say, hey, maybe this is a problem. I don't know. Maybe it's not. What do you guys think? Like, it's kind of a boring thing. You can leave some things up for interpretation, but to completely not give a stance at all, it's kind of sucky to read, for lack of better words. And I don't know, maybe he did take a stance and I just didn't read it, but it just felt kind of clouded a little bit. And I feel like any real stance was kind of lost in the plot line of this book. And this book is very plot heavy. It's not a lot of character that goes on. But I think that was kind of his goal. Because like I said, you're not looking at the individual. You're looking at large-scale societal themes in this book. So I enjoyed it. I'm probably not going to read the next ones. I don't know. There's a lot of books I want to read. But I recommend it if you're interested. If you are interested, I think you should read it. It's an interesting experience. Maybe you like it, maybe you won't. But I'm really excited for the movie because I feel like the movie might do some things better. Particularly the villain. That's my biggest thing, honestly. If the villain was better, some of these other things wouldn't matter as much to me. But overall, I'd say this book is about a 3-star because I just thought it could have been a lot better. I enjoyed it a lot, but it could have been a lot better. So, yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my review of Dune. This is kind of a different video type that I did. It's going to take me a lot more editing, but I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe, like, share. Also, keep an eye out for my book coming out soon. And follow me everywhere else. Check out my website. And keep an eye out for the next review.